In the world of Mr. Robot, a month has passed since the last episode. Elliot's out of jail, but not feeling quite himself. Trent and Mobley are still missing, and Darlene is concerned the Dark Army is making another big move. Meanwhile, Angela might have shown her true colors, and Whiterose and Fisher have a serious stare down. It's anything but normal on Mr. Robot, episode 2.7, init5.fve. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to our review of this week's episode of Mr. Robot. There are spoilers ahead, just so you've been warned. Alright, so this week's episode starts off with a little bit of catch-up, and we get to find out what actually sent Elliot to jail in the first place. And that was his hack of Krista's now ex-boyfriend, and the theft of his dog, or kind of liberation of his dog, since he wasn't treating the dog very well. But anyway, this is what ended up being the crime that sent him to jail, and what had to have been the world's fastest move from freedom to jail. 24 hours to arrest, arraignment, and conviction. But the rest of the opening sequence really just sets the scene for what we ended up seeing Elliot's world as in the whole first few episodes of this season. First off, Ray is the warden, which explains a whole lot, how he was able to move Elliot around, and also, of course, his access to a computer. So he was running all of that from the warden's desk, manipulating all of those sales and all of the prisoners' money. So nice showing of corruption there, straight at the top. But the rest of it, again, letting us know all of the setup. Leon was the first person that he met, and I really enjoyed his even opening line of "stick with me and everything will turn out okay," which of course, great foresight into Leon's position as kind of being there by Whiterose. He introduces himself to Elliot straight off, so we can see where that's the connection. Shows Elliot around, describes to him the importance of routine, how he is going through 90 CDs and starting up Seinfeld next, introduces everybody. Anyway, just sort of really sets the scene in that whole opening sequence. And I think that was nicely done, quickly sets the scene for us, lets us know why everything was there, and then moves on really quick, just as that transition, as we get to see it flashing from between the jail to what Elliot's mind is making everything look like, which is what we all got to see at the very beginning. So all of that really nicely done. Now, Elliot at this point should be in a really good place. I mean, he's being released from prison. He has come to a sort of peaceful accord with Mr. Robot. But things are off even from the very moment that he is released from prison. As he starts that whole Init 5 speech, he mentions that this should be returned to sound and color, and yet everything is still gray and muted. Things aren't what they're supposed to be. And this is again reinforced in the scene later when he's talking about normalcy, when he's in the bathroom taking a leak and he's saying, "God, peeing by myself would be the first normal thing that I've done in a while." And we find out that that's actually just going on in his head. He's not in that room. He's out in the living room talking with Darlene and Cisco. And a scene that I think beautifully started to illustrate the real swapping between Mr. Robot and Elliot and those little flash moments, and really continued throughout the rest of the episode as well. Done very, very well. And what makes this even more interesting is that Mr. Robot is actually just as concerned, if not more so, about this state than Elliot is. Elliot is trying to return to a state of normalcy, but he is not used to normal. I mean, in some ways that's kind of odd. Normal is whatever is normal to you. Even if it is completely abnormal to someone else, if that is your normal, that's a return to it. But for Elliot, that whole balance, everything, he's out of sync. And I think, again, another perfectly illustrated scene was in the subway, where he is in the car with the strange homeless guy who's playing those unsympathetic, out of tune pounding on the keyboard, everything there out of sync, and he's trapped inside the car, just being able to see Mr. Robot talking to Cisco in the background. Mr. Robot's having to jump in because Elliot is slipping away in a way from himself. He's out of sync. And despite the fact that Elliot thinks that he can do everything. And this really, of course, starts to build to a big head where we find out at the end episode the big phase 2 that they are looking into, that their big push is to be, is none other than formulated by Elliot himself. So there are so many sides to Elliot that he still can't see. Is this something that is hidden by Mr. Robot? Or is it possibly another personality? In Linux setting, init5 is a multi-user access state. So instead of, he's saying that init5 is a return to normalcy. That's not technically true, not from a coding sense. You can set init5, Linux is very flexible in this set, to many different things. But usually it is a setting for a multi-user networking platform. So is this meaning that it's not really normal? Maybe his normal set is multi-user. Is there someone else? Is there another personality that is hiding out within him? And I'm kind of hoping no. The whole Mr. Robot reveal was a very big reveal. I thought it was very important. It really sort of set up Elliot's personality. If we start to throw in another personality, I am afraid that that is just going to be a crutch. And the show has been written so well, I really don't think that they're going to be able to push in that direction and pull it off and have it make sense, make it look like anything outside of just trying to find a new surprise for the rest of us. So I don't think it's that, but it's definitely not a return to normalcy, because even for the crazy world of Elliot, what's going on right now is not normal. Now, with regard to Angela, it seems at least that she is now committing herself to finding some actual justice for the whole Washington Township plan, going in, stealing the files, bringing them down to the Nuclear Regulatory Agency. So I guess it's a nuclear treatment plant. I was thinking it was just waste plant, but this does explain the whole leukemia bit. But that certainly could have been her end real quick. I think that was the creepiest deputy director in the world, leading her down the most murderous looking hallway that I've ever seen. I am glad at least they gave Angela the brain to recognize that something was wrong there and take off. But a few small little bits with that. One, when she is breaking into the computer and just, in fact, they did this a couple of times. When she looks down, pops back up, there was the guy. And the same thing happened with the brownout. Lights flashed out, flashed back on, and there was the deputy director. A lot of kind of like jump moves like that, which seemed weird. But I'm a little tired of Angela's kind of deer in the headlights look. It's non-committal, so maybe it allows other people to sort of fill in the blanks. But it's just the most guilty looking face that I have ever seen. And obviously, not too much of a threat there, because apparently all e-corp executives think all blondes look alike. Thinking that Angela was Monica, the other secretary that Angela just seemed to easily dispatch. I guess there was a little bit of disguising of the voice, but that's, small little arguments with that. I'm glad that they're kind of moving things forward, and I'm curious how Dom and her are going to end up interacting. It's good to know that she's been followed for the past 2 months. That was kind of a nice bit, especially when we had that whole disk discussion, and that was the whole reason for her helping with the hack. And 2 months prior, see, it's a month since the last episode of this episode, so it would have been a month before that. And it was one of the first things, obviously, that as Dom said, that the boyfriend had said to her, was talking about the disc. So Angela's been followed very well, and we know that, but now we know the whole whys and wherefores. But it does make me wonder that if she did disappear when she was down in D.C., would Dom have known? Would she have followed that up with the whole Nuclear Regulatory Commission? Hey, went to a meeting and then wound up dead. Would that have helped? Does Dom know anything about the whole Washington Township, or is that really the key? Is that really the card that Angela has to play with her? Now, Whiterose and Fisher really illustrated in many ways the kind of complex nature of all of these stories, and the moves and counter moves, and the basically giant pissing contest between two powerful people, really centered around the Washington Township plant. Very interesting that Whiterose considers the plant to be her plant. Not our plant, not what we're sharing, not anything like this. No. It's her plant. Certainly more than willing to protect it, to kill the old CEO in order to keep power and control of this plant. But it's kind of interesting to see, again, with that play and interplay, as Fisher had said, yes, we did this big maneuver with Angela and she was able to release it and protect the plant. But since Whiterose had made that jump and started the shootout in Beijing, which spooked the administration and prevented the bailout, he's going to end up losing the plant to the government anyway. Now, of course, this is a strong card that he gets to play because Whiterose does not want to see that at all, and certainly was more than willing to talk to the Chinese government and try and get him a free loan or low interest loan in order to cover all of that. But really, all of that, just a strong, powerful scene of two men going at it with the threats and counter threats and veiled threats. And I love Fisher's whole mercenary position, that he would rather see them lose than to win himself. That's really where he's at. If you're going to push him far enough, he's more than happy to burn the whole place down. So, again, more excitement. We're going to see where this. You can really feel that all this Washington Township stuff is coming to a head, and I'm glad because I think we need to move forward. This has been sort of that floating backstory between Angela, between these two guys. We really need to get this pushed up to the forward and really move this concept forward, I think. And then with Darlene, really this episode, the only main movement with her is the whole tape situation, which a couple of you have pointed out as a possible problem. Sin, I'm talking to you. So this is the sudden realization that she took off the mask on camera, and now there's a tape out there with her as a leader of F Society. So that sends Cisco back to Susan's place, where he finds the tape, and we don't know, someone breathing heavily. This, of course, I'm assuming is to return back to the apartment where he's pounding on the door and who is revealed to kind of shock Darlene right in those final moments. Is it Mobley? Is it Trenton? Is it someone else? Is it Tyrell? Probably not Tyrell. But again, really interesting, especially when that's an interesting thought, especially when they tie in that last moment where they have Joanna sitting there in front of Elliot's apartment. I don't know where that's going to go with. Joanna's whole storyline is kind of boring me at this point, so this might end up being something interesting. Is this really going to reveal the actual fate of Tyrell Wellick? That would be nice to set aside. We really want to see what the actual phase 2 is, and I thought they had brought up, actually, the most important point is that F Society was trying to change the world. Elliot, Darlene, Mobley, Trenton, they were all there. That was the whole plan of the 5-9 hat. But they needed the Dark Army to do it, and they never seemed to ask the Dark Army what their interest in all of this is. So this is where we get to find out those bigger answers. And there's only a couple of episodes left, 3 episodes left, I believe. So we got to be figuring this out really, really quick. Oh, and just a couple of things. Nice to meet Elliot's mom, Elliot and Darlene's mom. Not dead. Also not a guard, but still alive, just catatonic, kind of unresponsive, which is sort of an interesting comparative to seeing Elliot in his beginning times at the prison, also in a somewhat catatonic, non-responsive state. But I did enjoy him going back there to kind of thank Mom being the persona of the household that he was in, to help him mentally sort of adjust and deal with his surroundings. So I thought that was just a nice character moment of him connecting in and making that little moment. Also, considering how much time we spend with his father, it was nice to actually meet his mom for a moment. Also, during the deposition, when Mr. Robot pops his head onto the camera, I love that. That was just great. How he just sticks his head in and just starts, "What are you doing?" I love those little moments, and I thought that was just beautifully done. Whiterose's correction to her underling about using the word accident, also very telling. One, certainly implies that the accident, the plane crash for the previous CEO, and she says it right off anyway, was not an accident. But also really more in lines of like, whenever you hear the word accident, you should probably think something else. Just a really subtle way of pointing that out. And lastly, was that Elliot's notebook that hot Carla was burning at that last scene, just as Elliot said, caught us up to the present just the moments before he was being released? It looked like the color pattern on his notebook, so I guess we know what happened to that. All right, so that's going to wrap us up for this week. I hope you guys did enjoy this review. If you did, you can go ahead and hit that like button. If you would like to come back every week, you can hit that subscribe button right over there. Oh, we also do reviews of Fear the Walking Dead, and coming up in the next season, we'll be doing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and, of course, The Walking Dead proper, and that returns on October 23rd. So, good couple of shows that will be coming up in the future. Thoughts on this episode? What did you think of things? Excited, not excited? Are things still working for you? Or is it starting to get a little bit bogged down? Go ahead and throw that down in the comment section below. We can continue our conversations. Now, you can always catch me on Twitter. I'm at Darren Jakes. There it is right there. Otherwise, I think that's, like I said, going to wrap it up for this week. So, I am D, and I am out of here. You guys take it easy. I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.